Welcome to Female Fluence. We are a place of women empowering women. This is a safe environment where females are not judged nor afraid to flourish. My goal is to help you live an energized life of balance, whether as a mom, a wife, or in your profession. It is time to have self-worth and self-compassion. Live in the present moment and surround yourself with only healthy connections. So join me, Promash Shur, a woman empowerment life coach, an educator, and a mother of three, to help take you on a journey of true identity and inspiration. Many people experience emotional eating, but few truly understand it. Have you ever reached for ice cream after a hard day, or found yourself snacking on chips in front of the TV, not because you're really hungry, but maybe because you're stressed, overwhelmed, sad, or maybe just bored? Emotional eating is when we use comfort foods to soothe or distract ourselves from uncomfortable emotions like stress, anger, fear, loneliness, or sadness. And while it might bring short-term relief, emotional eating is often tied to patterns of self-sabotage. We want to feel good, be healthy, and stay in control, yet we engage in behaviors that work against those goals. Self-sabotage can look like procrastination, perfectionism, or setting ourselves up with unrealistic expectations. At its core, it often stems from low self-worth, fear of failure, or even fear of success. In today's episode, we are unpacking how emotional eating and self-sabotage are connected, and more importantly, how to break free from that cycle. My guest today is Christina Hathaway, a licensed therapist, a certified personal trainer, and nutrition coach with over 15 years of experience helping high-achieving women heal their relationship with food, body image, and self-worth. She's a founder of Mindset of Matter, a whole health coaching company focused on sustainable change from the inside out. Christina is known for blending science and psychology to create deep, lasting transformation. Christina, thank you so much for being on Female Fluence. Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that intro. I'm so excited to be here and having this conversation with you.
And so am I. It's definitely a very important conversation that is needed in today's society with the impact of social media, as we know, especially. So, Christina, before we get very deep, let's start with your personal journey. What pivotal moments or challenges brought you to the moment where you are today?
Yeah. So again, thank you for this opportunity. My story probably sounds a lot like many women who are my age. I'm 42, and growing up in a household where our parents didn't necessarily have the skills to handle things like emotions and conversation and communication, because unfortunately their parents were not equipped to do that. So I grew up in a household where my mother she went through a lot when I was very young. She lost her grandmother, her mother, and her brother all within the same 3 years. And from my perspective, she was going through that, and so was the rest of the family. But because I'm the youngest in my family, I had to go through all of those changes myself alone. I wasn't allowed to go to funerals. I wasn't allowed to see any of them. And I found myself starting to feel like I had to figure things out on my own, because then once my mom went through all of those those griefs and losses, she went through what I would clinically call a depression. And she did not have the emotional intelligence to know how to handle that. And so I found myself being a parent to my mother at a very young age, being very hyper independent, because again, I had to go through these tragedies on my own and figure out how to manage them on my own, while also seeing my mother crumble. So that ultimately led to a personality and identity, really, to take care of others, I was a dancer very early in my life. And when I was dancing and performing, she was happy. She was with me. So this kind of idea of, okay, need to take care of people, but also I need to be aware of how people see me. Like, what is it that I do or how do I look that makes people feel happy? What can I do about myself to control others? Because when I wasn't in control, it was very scary for me. When I wasn't performing, when I wasn't, making her look good, it was abusive. And so I learned very early on to do that. That then, manifested into my relationships. We'll start at high school, finding I was the original Joanna Gaines. I was the best fixer-upper you could find when it came to relationships. And that I mean, literally every single relationship until one day I had a terrible breakup because I went and, being that I was a caretaker, being that I was that parentified child, a lot of people throughout my life just naturally came to me for advice. And I learned, oh, I can make a career out of this. I can be a therapist, right? And so I have an undergrad in psychology from Arizona State University. I then decided to get my master's. A master's of advanced study is the actual degree in marriage and family therapy. And so I went through this program. I graduated, and I was still in these really toxic relationships. I had never gone to therapy. I'd never done my own work, but I kept doing the same behaviors over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And I was sabotaging my body. I was sabotaging my relationships and just my relationship with myself. So coming back to it, I had a relationship end because my mood was out of control. I was using alcohol and really restriction and dieting to feel a sense of control and like self-worth. And he left, and he should have. I sat on a couch and I said, I'm on the couch of the house that I own, hyper independent. I mean, on paper, I was amazing, but inside I was completely crumbling apart. And I said, okay, you need to take your own advice and you need to go get you need to do the work. So I went on my own journey to understand my trauma, to understand why these behaviors that I was engaging in continue to result in outcomes that were hurtful, that felt lonely, that felt like that little girl who was alone during the tragedies in her life. I kept coming back to that and really understanding it and undoing it. And through that, I was able to quite literally change my entire relationship with myself. I understood the power of my thoughts. I understood the power of, gratitude, and just I grew that emotional intelligence that I was never taught from my family. And throughout time, so in my clinical career, I've worked in trauma, I've worked in attachment, codependency, and eating disorders. So I've worked in every level of care other than partial hospitalization, so inpatient, intensive outpatient, and outpatient care. And I also worked in the fitness industry. So someone listening might think, wow, that's, kind of, conflicts with each other, working in eating disorder care and working in the fitness industry, right? However, what I found is that I would speak to my members that would come to my fitness classes, and they would ask me what I did for like my real job, quote unquote. And I tell them that I worked, I ran body image groups and eating disorder programs. And they would always say like, oh, I struggle with enter their struggle, whether it's emotional eating, binge eating, yo-yo dieting. And I realized that there was no place for your average woman to go to talk about these things because they don't necessarily meet the like diagnostic criteria for an eating disorder. And most eating disorder therapists specialize in that. So that's kind of their arena. And then your general practitioners, could they help? Yes. But most of the time they need to diagnose something for them to be able to like use insurance. So long story short, my story has a lot of ups and downs, but I decided I'm going to create a place. I'm going to take everything I've learned through my own journey, as well as through my education and experience, and adapt it to your everyday woman. And that's where the Mindset of Matter was created. It's, as you said, it's blends psychology and biology. So not just what we traditionally see in the fitness industry, which is behavioral change, change the diet, change the exercise. It is the beliefs that we're really looking at as well and the psychological change. And I know for me, being able to understand again why I was doing the things I was doing and why I continued to get the results I didn't want, I was able to make changes to my body, even how I look at food, how I look at exercise. I'm in such an amazing, I mean, I love it now because now I'm going through perimenopause. So, now we're going into
Fun
the next phase of life.
times.
Yeah. And so being able to have that foundation under me during this, identity shift, body shift, it's wonderful. And I love that I get to share that with the not just the women we work with, but anywhere in our content, on my own podcast, and wherever. You catch me at the grocery store, I'll probably talk to you about it. Yeah.
This is amazing. I think what the work you're doing is so powerful. And so many of the things that you were talking about, I could completely resonate with that. It is true. I mean, it wasn't our parents' fault. It wasn't, they just, all the generations behind us didn't know. Like it was, these things were not spoken. We didn't have these conversations. And so now it's our job to kind of change that for all the generations to come. So I think I didn't, I had more of the perfectionism in me because, and my mom did go through similar things that you were talking about, which is really hard because you just feel like you have to grow up really quickly and you have to take care of the whole household and be the strong one. And I feel like I've always had to carry that with me. And it's really hard to just be like, it's okay. Like I don't need to
Right.
always be the strong one carrying everything on my shoulders. So like, and that can be a huge burden. And then it comes out in different ways where, you're a perfectionist and your house has to be clean, perfect, and every drawer has to be organized and you can't sit down until everything's put away. And I have worked really
Hmm.
hard through my own, I guess, basically coaching myself to
Yeah.
unprogram everything that I had, taught myself and all those beliefs that I had. Like, if I do this and I can do that. But I completely agree with you. Like, the mind is so important. And a lot of times we don't, I see so many people around me or friends that just do these yo-yo diets and it's like severe, like I'm starving myself, but then like for these 2 days for this I'm gonna eat, and then they go back into it and then they have a rough day or something happens, and it's like when I see them
Hmm.
next they've gained all the weight back. And so it's like you have to get to the root of the problem and you have to deal with your emotions first to heal the
Hmm.
rest of you. So
Yeah, I like to say that your binge eating, your yo-yo dieting, your emotional eating is actually a solution to a greater problem, which is perfectionism, people pleasing, overachievement, hyper independence. When we can take those parts of us out of their extremes, because wanting to be the best that I can be is not bad. It's when it becomes at the expense of me that it becomes extreme, right? Where my perfectionism turns into I'm paralyzed
yeah,
because I can't figure out how to do this thing perfectly. So I'm like in that analysis paralysis. And that's when it becomes extreme. And we eventually burn out from that. And we have these parts of us that put that burn out, like put out the fire. And that could be, again, your binge eating, alcohol, shopping, whatever that looks like. But a lot of people look at those behaviors as the problem when really they are the solution
yeah.
to a greater problem.
Yes. So you have to look at that greater problem in order to solve everything else. It's so true.
Correct.
So I mean, we've touched on it briefly, but in what ways is your work, do you think, creating meaningful change, not just for you, but for, for society?
Yeah, this is my goal. It's like David and Goliath. My goal is to change the industry, to change how we look at taking care of ourselves because my slogan is what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. And worldwide, women have been told that you're good if you look this way, you are bad if you look that way, and your worth is put on the scale, the number, the size of clothes that you wear. When we know, I like to always use this example. Like when you have a child and that child comes out and is born, they cannot do many things. They can cry, they can eat, they can sleep, and they, go to the bathroom. They poop and pee. They are the most worthy little things. They can't get an A plus. They can't get the, winning goal. They can't get into Harvard. They can't do anything, but they are worthy. And somewhere along the way, that worth is they're told that it's something they have to earn, right? And so the meaningful change of what I want to do is helping people realize it is not the scale. It is not the size of clothes. It is inherent. It's within you. That's where your worth comes from. And also respecting yourself because you deserve it, because you are worthy, also includes eating in a way that's nourishing, moving your body in a way that's, it needs to move, but also enjoying foods, resting, right? Managing your stress, sleeping. And so I don't hear a lot of people incorporate the two. I like to compare it to the headless horseman, the industry, that our bodies are here and our heads are over here. You go to one doctor for the head or one provider for the head, you go to a different provider for the body. And my goal is to not only, I mean, I can't even say goal. What I'm doing currently is, like I said, combining the two. And I'm hoping that I can get the word out, teach other coaches, do podcasts like this to say there is another way. And it's a lot less shaming than the current, industry that's the diet culture.
Right. Very true. What is the age range usually of the people who are signing up for your program? Do you have a lot of, I'm curious, like the younger girls, or do they not really want to acknowledge the issue yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. I currently have, I would say around like 35, but I have worked with teenagers whose mothers have heard me or, seen me somewhere or it's a referral. It's hard to work with them on this piece, on the mental health piece. However, we've done work and I've just realized that I have like a program, it's a method and it's 4 different steps and I've adapted it to those teen clients, but traditionally it's a woman who a lot of like high achieving women who are in leadership positions, executives, people in the medical field because they just understand like I'm a very intelligent person. I can't figure this out. And I continue to do the same thing, getting the same results as I had already mentioned. There's got to be a different way. And they're willing to put in that work. So I see that, 35 and over is our clientele. We have had clients in their like late 20s sign up, but it's usually kind of again a referral from someone who was a bit older and coming into the program.
Okay. And I think 35 is actually like, it makes sense because it's like, you're thinking about turning 40, you think about midlife is coming, and it's like, okay, I need to make some changes. Like, what's happening, before, as we age and it
Mhm.
becomes harder to lose the weight and change our habits.
Yeah, I would say too, just I like to say puberty, pregnancy, and perimenopause. Whatever your thoughts are about yourself and your body during those developmental transitions, they're just going to get worse as you go through that transition or better. Like if you have a good, obviously a positive relationship with your body. But oftentimes you'll see mothers go through pregnancy and postpartum. And if they had this yo-yo diet mentality prior to having a child, what's the thing they want to do right after they give birth? They want to get their baby body back, right? And so you're right. It really having, being able to look ahead and say, okay, I know my body is going through these changes. I need to figure out how to go through this developmental change in my life the best way that I possibly can.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. How do you guide women to stop chasing external validation through their bodies and instead create that real lasting change from the inside out, like you mentioned?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I have the mindset method. So, it's a 4-part method and it's know, name, notice, and nurture. And I've created through my program, my clients receive reflections every Monday through my app. and each reflection builds on the last. So in the no phase, I'm really understanding their pasts, I'm understanding their patterns, and understanding their relationship with themselves, their bodies, and food. And through that, and honestly, through really the first conversation, I can probably put my clients in a few boxes, if you will. So my perfectionists, my overachievers, sometimes those like to be, they're the same. My people pleasers, my women who don't want to take up space. So we'll call them like the lost child, my hyper independent women. And that's the reflections and just the knowledge that I have is important because then I can help them recognize where that came from. Where in your life did you learn to be a perfectionist and what did you believe you would receive, or what did you maybe receive because you were a perfectionist? So, an example of that is what need was filled? Safety, identity, love and connection, growth, right? Autonomy. What need that we as humans need was filled through this behavior? And if you weren't engaging in that perfectionism, what was happening instead? What messages were you receiving instead? And they begin to recognize, wow, this perfectionism has grown from a place that I thought if I just did things perfectly, nobody would, I would get praise. So that showed me I was loved, right? I wouldn't get yelled at or maybe even just criticized because I made a mistake. So safety, right? And that was little me, and little me is continuing to try to be perfect because she fears losing love and losing safety. And as an adult in your adult mind, you're like, that's not true for me anymore. That was something from the past. And we help women make those connections. And not only make those connections in the name phase, then we're going to name the unmet needs. We're going to name these parts of themselves. We're going to help them recognize, their boundary system. In the notice part, we're going to help them take everything from the no and the name. And we're going to begin to notice when we're starting to think from that perfectionistic brain. And because we understand the way we feel in our bodies, the way what emotions are connected with that, I can recognize when perfectionism is taking the driver's seat or the wheel, I should say. And through coaching, learn how to come back to myself, right? Come back to me right now, not me back then, not
Right.
younger me right now, right? And work from a place of compassion and curiosity and calmness. And in the nurture phase, we are just strengthening that connection to self. That also includes connecting back to your body, which is in the notice phase. We do a whole thing on what do I need? Like, what is my gut telling me? Even hunger. Am I hungry? Do I need rest? And beginning to start to build that trust that I am enough. I don't have to be perfect. I am imperfect, and that is human. And I can receive love and safety just by being and being connected to me.
So notice is kind of like your self-awareness, right? You're
Mhm.
being aware of all the feelings and the emotions. So remind me again before you said the no,
No is kind of the history taking, if you will. It's the most aha
name.
part of it.
Okay.
Name, notice, and nurture.
Nurture. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. How do you know what? Actually, I know this is an important one because I noticed that you've started this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is good. Menopause, right? I think the
Hmm.
mindset menopause is huge because I mean, I'm not there yet. I'm behind, but I've
Be
noticed
thankful
so
for that.
many, yeah, right. But I noticed so many people coming to me and saying, "Oh, just wait." And it's like planting these seeds of like, I mean, I know it's hard, but so much, I feel like the mindset is so important. So if I'm immediately thinking, okay, like any day now, I'm going to just wake up. I'm going to be a monster and my whole life is going to change. And then I'm going to just gain weight like crazy. And my hormones are going to, it's like, I feel like if I keep thinking like that, all of those things are really going to happen, right?
Absolutely.
And this is what's happening for a lot of females. They are so fearful of this. and they're kind of projecting it on themselves. And then, one friend tells the other one and the other one, and the fear is just put out there, the bad energy. So
Hmm.
that really struck to me when I was looking at your social media, and that came up, and I'm like, oh, this is something that we all need to work on. If we have a better mindset about menopause, then maybe we can navigate it so much better and change the the whole fear around it. So tell me
Absolutely.
a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the mindset of menopause came out of my own experience. I had a hysterectomy at age 35, and they told me, okay, we'll keep your ovaries because that will not put you in perimenopause. Fast forward, we've now learned that even keeping your ovaries pushes you into perimenopause around 4 years, about 4 years earlier than someone my age who is not. So I'm 42, and I just began to experience symptoms, in my late 30s. And I didn't like how I felt. And I have the connections, the platform, the information to have educated myself on this and realized, wow, I am going through perimenopause. And if you would have asked my mother, she would have told you you're too young because that's what they were told. So as a clinician, I'm looking at the common traits that are symptoms, if you will, that women experience early on. And one of the major things that stood out to me was the change in neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin. And these swift mood swings were a early indicator that we're going into perimenopause. And it's not just, fluctuating moods, which I've experienced. It's very overwhelming, but a new onset of anxiety, a new onset of depression, and or someone who has a diagnosis of anxiety and depression, their medication doesn't feel like it's quote unquote working anymore. Right. So it intrigued me because, like I mentioned, my mood was I would get hit with this insane amount of emotion. I almost felt like my 12-year-old self, like literally, like that going through puberty. But also, when I was 12, I didn't have a lot of stress. But now that I'm 40, 39, 40, I'm going through I'm getting hit with these mood swings and I have life going on at the same time. So I, I began to think, okay, I want to educate myself on this. I had a license renewal for my therapy license, and I dug in, and I said, I want to learn everything about menopause. Surprisingly, there was about five continuing education courses, and two of them were so outdated. Like I wrote the most scathing follow-up, whatever they do at the end where they ask you, how was this course, the review? And so I began to go outside of, the therapy world. I started to follow certain people, Dr. Mary Claire Haver, Dr. Stacy Sims. If they had a program, I did it. I read it. I, did their certifications. I did another certification through Girls Gone Strong. And I thought, if this person who is a clinician who understands emotions, who is a personal trainer and nutrition coach who understands food, understands exercise. If I'm having trouble, then your average woman is having trouble. So the mindset of menopause came about to be that place to not only educate. A lot of it is education. Like your symptoms aren't just these random things. My ears itch all the time, Pearl, all the time. Did you know itchy ears is a
No, is
symptom
that
of
another
perimenopause?
symptom? Oh my God.
Yes. And I'm like, why did my ears itch so much? And I thought it was because I wear headphones, but I've been wearing headphones forever, educating on symptoms. Then also helping understand your mood. There's a lot of research that shows that cognitive behavioral therapy is helpful in the menopause transition because just like you said, we notice that when a woman does not have the awareness of what's happening in her body, but then reacts from what's happening in her body, her symptoms are stronger. Okay. So being able to have that clinical side and say, okay, we're going to teach you to become aware, have that introspection, learn how to have radical acceptance. This is what's happening to me right now. We're not adding a narrative to it. We're not deciding that it's worst case scenario. We're not catastrophizing. We're saying I'm having a hot flash right now. Take a deep breath, and I'm either going to get some water, I always assume the hot flash happens right in the middle of like a presentation at work. Because again, a lot of the women I work with are leaders.
Yes,
Maybe I need to take a step outside, or if I'm wearing a blazer, take it off, just ask for a break and we move on. But if I'm not aware and I don't have that introspection, then I'm going to freak out and the hot flash is going to get worse and I'm going to fumble over my words and everything is going to cascade from there. So having the mental health side of it, but then also the physiological, because there's so much we can do in regards to lifestyle change. Nutrition is a huge, huge, huge part of it. I cannot tell you the types of foods that we eat play a part in how severe our hormones are, specifically around inflammation and exercise, but not for just aesthetics. Yes, we work on the meno belly fat part of it, but also for longevity, for bone health, for independence, reducing frailty. And then lastly, I have partnered with Dr. Jordan Trapp, who is a women's health and hormone specialist. And the members of the Mindset of Menopause will also have the option to have her review your labs that your doctor gaslit you about. Maybe even do new labs and maybe even not even do labs, but just talk to her about your symptoms and hormone replacement or any sort of other supplementation that she can provide. So it started as what's going on in my body? Why do I feel like an alien? To now let's teach everyone else that exact thing. And yeah, I'm really excited about it.
I think this is so needed. This there's not enough information. I mean, now I see it a little bit more and more, and like books coming out and more presentations. But realistically, there's not enough information. And you are correct. Your average, gynecologist or internal medicine doctor or family doctor, they don't know this. They just know kind of the older information that was given to them. Like I don't even think in medical school, like how much
Not
time.
even OBGYNs.
Right? Like I don't think that like there's any time even put in to talk about it. So it's really like the minute you go, it's just like, okay, it's trying to figure it out and then just giving you medicine without figuring out like, are you eating the wrong food? What's happening with your hormones? So
Yep.
I think this program that you've created, it's like a full package, which is
Mhm.
so is it like an ongoing class or someone would come in? I'm just kind of now I'm just asking for myself. Like I'm trying to
Hey, I love
prepare.
it.
Okay. I
It's
like to prepare things. So
yes.
is it a class or it's kind of like like an ongoing program
Mhm.
or like a one-time consult or how does that work?
That's a great question. It's a 16-week container and it's cohort style because another thing that research shows that having a community and a place to talk about all of these, and I'm going to say the word crazy symptoms. Some of the things you're like, what is that? Why do I smell so bad all of a sudden? Why is my shoulder frozen? Why do I have no range of motion in my shoulder? Why all of a sudden is my skin super dry, right? So having like the cohort is the community aspect of it. And our next cohort, it starts July 21st and it's a, again, 16-week container. Then after that container, there will be a group aspect to continue to check in, to continue to educate, but the nitty gritty bulk of it is in that those first 4 months, and then there'll be again more support and education after the fact. That will be just kind of a monthly group type of environment.
Kind of checking in, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
Uh,
Checking in, still having the support around nutrition, and then in that, I'm going to have different providers. So menopause specialists who are OBGYNs because they actually have to go through a whole nother set of training to do that. Have people like that come in, answer questions. So it'll be a nice little refresher, I guess you would say, in the group.
That is great. So, my listeners, there is hope. Do not
Yes.
panic. Don't be so fearful around the word menopause. It's going to be okay. Because I know
Mhm.
that's a big one, and I always get emails like we need more episodes on menopause because that's a hot topic.
And I just want to say
Sure,
one
of
thing to
course.
your listeners. So the average age of menopause. So we have to realize menopause is, not having a period for 366 days. The average age of that is 51. However, the age range ranges from 45 to 55. The duration of perimenopause is around 7 to 10 years. So if 45 is the earliest age we're seeing women go through menopause, 35 could be when perimenopause starts for some women. So if you're not too young, your doctor will tell you that. But if you have symptoms, and I can provide you, actually I just finished it for the program, a symptom tracker. I can provide you with the link for your listeners so they can start looking at all the symptoms and be like, oh, I have vaginal dryness, or I'm having incontinence all of a sudden. You can start to look through the symptoms, the date. There's a place for the intensity of your symptoms and notes so that you can keep track of them. But I just wanted to add those numbers because I don't think we realize that perimenopause can absolutely start in your late 30s.
Yes, that's very true. And we would love that at the end. If you can share that with us, that would be great, I think. I mean, for myself, I just turned 48 and I've been having like a few times, like I thought I was having a heart attack and I didn't. And and that's the thing, you don't, again, you don't know. And I kept looking at my Apple Watch or my Aura Ring and I'm like, but everything, my vitals are all fine. But I
Hmm.
felt like I couldn't catch my breath. And then later, after researching, I was like, oh, this is another symptom. Like, can we
Yep,
not
heart
have enough
palpitations.
symptoms? Right?
It affects, so we have estrogen receptors in every part of our bodies, every part of our bodies. So there are issues from skin to muscular to cognitive to cardiovascular, the fluctuation in reproductive hormones, estrogen specific. Estrogen is an amazing hormone and it does a lot for us. We don't realize that until it starts going away. You say, oh, I did not realize that it affects all parts of the body.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we can talk about menopause, I think, forever.
Yep.
So let's see. I've heard you say if it wasn't my body that needed changing, it was my belief that my
Mhm.
value depended on it. I think that's such a powerful reflection of how our mindset has to shift first, and then the rest will follow. So can you unpack that for us? And when did that realization look for you personally, and then how did it help you guide other women to reach the same place?
Yes. So I have been incredibly lean. I've had six pack. I've had literally heard women in the gym tell their trainers, I want to look like her. And I would look in the mirror in the gym and pick myself apart. I've been 15% body fat, which is very low for a woman. And I've been 25% body fat, right? And I think right now I'm probably around 20%. Why I'm saying that is because it didn't matter. It didn't matter if I was 15% or 25%. I What I was seeing in the mirror was someone who was not enough, who needed to do more, who, this little area needs to be tighter, and realized the goalpost kept being, it was being moved farther away every time I would hit a new goal. And it had nothing to do again with my body. It was the fact that I was trying to use how I looked and hitting a certain physique to convince myself that I was okay. However, what also happened is immense anxiety around gaining the weight back because my body became my business card. And people started to look at I always had the experience. I always had the education, but when I changed my body, all of a sudden I'm an expert. And I would think to myself, what are people going to think if you gain the weight back? So just very distorted views about my body. And I'm going to be honest with your audience, a lot of this industry struggles with this. A lot of people in this industry struggle. I just interviewed Michelle Carroll. She's a great follow. She's a PhD candidate out of Ireland, and she studies the disordered eating and body dysmorphia in the fitness industry. So for myself, I said, okay, there's nothing that's changing my view of me. And I know that until I change, again, when I say in my mind, I am going to continue to see this less than person in the mirror. And that's where I began to slowly start to incorporate things like rest. I used to work out 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day. Started incorporating rest. And I thought, okay, I'm okay. Like the world didn't end, right? I've learned how to reverse diet. I educated myself on reverse diet because I was eating, 1,300 calories, 1,350 to be exact. And I started trying to get my calories as high as I possibly could without gaining weight. And that was a whole nother side of food that I was able to, it was difficult, but I got myself to that place and I'm like, this is magical. I get to eat all of this food and not gain weight. I really honed in on strength training, but then again, did the work on what was I trying to prove to myself or convince myself about myself. What was my body and the way I looked, what was it trying to do in regards to mindset? So through that process, I still, like I said, I still exercise, I still eat healthy, but I just my relationship with my body is incredibly different. Like I almost get emotional about it because it's so freeing. It's so freeing. And when you can recognize your worth again is inherent and is from within, begin to understand again how those behaviors, mine being restrictive eating and excessive exercise, like what were they trying to provide for me? And then providing that thing for me instead, like providing love towards myself, providing safety, providing connection, me doing it for me. Once I was able to do that, I mean, life really changed. And again, I was able to take all of that and put it into this program so that we can help others to feel that. So that's my very long way of answering that question.
That's a great way. And I think when you refer back to worth, I again see when you were speaking to us about it earlier, the baby, right? And I think that's just I mean, it's a great analogy. It's a great way of thinking each time when you think like that baby can't really do anything. But
Mhm.
he or she, it's like they're so precious and beautiful and their worth is so much. So it's like it has nothing to do if you go back to like yourself to that point and picture yourself. I think it's a great way to just have a self reminder about your self-worth. Now, I know you were talking about, I mean, this is what you were explaining is really body dysmorphia, right? Is that a
Correct.
little bit more extensive, or is it kind of what you're saying? Like you see the mirror, but you don't see what people are seeing. You
Hmm.
see something completely different, which is really scary.
Absolutely. And body dysmorphia is that obsessive like preoccupation with like a certain part of your body or perceived flaws in your body. Whereas like my friends would look at me and be like, you look great, right? It's unnoticeable to other people. And I've struggled with that probably my whole life. I didn't tell you guys, I've been a dancer since age 3. I did touch on that, but I danced up until college. And, as you get into competitive dance, college dance, I cheered for 2 years, I danced for a year. For some reason the uniforms get smaller and smaller.
Yes, I was a dance mom. Do you think though, do you think sometimes like the dancing or something like that has to do with it, right?
Absolutely.
Like I just because
Absolutely.
it's like seeing yourself in that mirror constantly, and then yes, the uniforms do get tinier and tinier, and then you're looking at the girl next to you in the same mirror and
Hmm.
comparing the abs, everything. So that's being in that industry is really, really difficult.
Right. I am a mentor to a social worker who's also a personal trainer who is a professional dancer. And she said it brilliantly. She struggles with perfectionism because every time she hit that floor in a competition, she had to, as she said, leave it all on the floor. And her body was what was going to say if that dance was good or bad. And someone with longer legs might have, a better leap or a better, better turns. And she doesn't have that. So it's this concept of not only my body has to look a certain way. Oh, and I didn't mention some of them would go to auditions and literally be cut because of their stature. So they wouldn't even dance. They would just be cut. And I know for me, like I've auditioned and I auditioned for the NFL team here in Arizona and I had clear braces, like little brackets. You could not see them from the crowd. And that was, I mean, absolutely crushed my audition. I know that. I could say that because I've been doing it for so long. People around me are like, "You're a shoe-in." And they wouldn't let me in because my braces, and they were clear. It wasn't like
Brutal. That is so brutal. I'm sorry. And that's a hard industry to be in,
yeah,
definitely, for
yeah.
sure.
And so it absolutely contributes to that. on top of there's just so many things, for some women, they've grown up with being picked apart. It's almost like, I have a mother who is like nothing that I did was enough, and that mentality transferred into my body. Nothing that I did was enough. And so the body dysmorphia was, I mean, it was like the next next stop on my journey because of everything I had gone through. And it's it feels like you're looking through a fun house glasses. Is the only way I can explain it. Like you're
Yeah.
looking at the mirror through these fun house glasses
Yeah.
that are making you this big
It's so
thing.
scary.
Yeah. So it's really sad. But again, like that's why I get emotional in talking about my experience in how I feel about my body now. It's, night and day. And it's again so freeing. And it's one of my proudest things I think I've accomplished.
I think freeing is the perfect word to describe it because you're really like you're a prisoner of your own body. Like when you're
Mhm.
stuck in that situation where every mirror, every food you eat, every clothes you want to try on, it's like it's a constant battle with yourself.
Right. Just one other thing is, and then you lose the weight and you start getting into the smaller clothes and things fit better and, this and that. So there's this reinforcement that happens as well. And it's a
Yeah, and then you
mess.
can get obsessed with it, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
like to add on to that, let's say if I'm your client and we all been there. I go on this amazing vacation or I have a nice fun weekend with the girls. And of course, I've been drinking, I'm eating,
Mhm.
I'm splurging. And then you come home and then you have this horrible sense of guilt. You're like, you look at the scale and you just say, I'm not getting on that. Like I'm
Mhm.
terrified. So, what can we do? How do you help clients kind of reset in those moments and get back on track without that, shameful spiral where they feel so guilty? Because that's the whole key. And I gone through that and that, and when I go on vacation too, like I'm very consistent, I'm disciplined, but when I go on vacation, I do my best to enjoy it. Like you want to try the foods. You can't go to Italy and say I'm not having any pasta. Like that just
Or
doesn't make
wine.
sense. Or wine. Or bread, or so but
Correct.
then it's like I make sure like there's some walking activity. I
Mhm.
mean, obviously, like there's some sort of activity that I'm doing, but I enjoy myself. And then, but when I do come back home, well, my rule is I don't get on the scale probably for
Mhm.
like a week or so, or like two.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, because all that, body inflammation, the water weight, all the
Yep.
traveling, like I don't want it to ruin my trip and my vacation. And that's what I'm focusing on instead of like the amazing memories of my family. And then I go through, like, I dive right back into my regular routine. And
Yep.
that, for the most part, has like worked. Like, what are
Mhm.
your thoughts on that?
No, and I agree. I tend to tell my clients there is no track. This is not a train. There is not a roller coaster. This is your life. And life is going to include vacations, birthday parties, happy hours, girls' trips. And we want that because we want to have the best quality of life. So from the get-go, every single client understands that I want to see in their diet their love foods, the foods that they love. I want to see it throughout their week. I want to see it, even like I eat chocolate every single day. Every single day after my lunch, I have my little thing of chocolate. Now, that's not even, I mean, that's a silly example because it's literally just a small piece, but I just want to use it because I have chocolate every day. So I teach my clients this because what we're going to move them away from is this all or nothing thinking.
Hmm.
And what ends up happening with that is if I'm having girls' night and drinks, this Friday, maybe next Friday, I have, the pizza and wine with my husband on date night. And then the next, weekend, I go to brunch and I'm still seeing results. When I go on vacation, what I'm not going to do is have the efforts. I'm not going to go into the all. I'm not going to go into the binge. And that's what I see with a lot of clients is that they're in this like white knuckling, especially during like when if they have a trip to a beach, they're eating nothing. They're white knuckling their way through and being like, I just got to get to vacation. I just got to get to vacation. And then they get on vacation and they end up
That's
doing,
it.
yeah. And then, of course, they feel so much guilt because it was such a vast difference from where they were, in this like clean eating. And then, and they tend to again have, so much guilt, so much shame. And because the way that they have managed guilt and shame is just going back to restrictive eating, they don't go back to a routine. They go into the next, restrictive diet or whatever that looks like. Whereas if I can say, let's have the things, let's eat the foods, you're going to do, it's the exception, it's not the rule, right? Then once we're going to lose weight, if that's what you do choose towards vacation, but again, you're still going to have, your time, your foods that you love. When we get on vacation, enjoy. Like you said, let's find some activities like paddleboarding, walking on the beach, going to museums. Let's get some movement in if you can. Try to get a protein at each meal. Manage the alcohol to whatever that looks like for you. And if clients that, 2 drinks is enough, some clients 6 drinks is enough. Try to hydrate and let's prepare to get home. So let's make sure we have an Instacart or grocery pickup when we get home so that you've got everything you need to just get right back into your day to day. And that's it. And it works every time. I have so many clients, this is the first vacation I went on and I wasn't stressed about food.
Enjoy it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I know the other thing I just feel like lately, I feel like food and eating has lost its joy because you go to events, you go out to dinner, everyone's on a strict diet, or there is keto, there is Ozempic,
Ozempic.
and right, and it's like you're like afraid, you feel nervous, like people watching me. I'm actually eating my food like a normal person. I Because no one's really eating, they're just kind of playing around with their food. They have a few bites, and all these foods go in the trash. I don't know. I mean, I love to cook. So when I
Mhm.
cook, like I want to have people over and I want to like, we all sit down and have a meal. And I just feel like that's kind of been like eliminated in this new world that we live in.
Yes. Yeah. It is. I can't tell you how many of my clients who are doing it the right way go to girls' brunch and, oh, my friend's on Ozempic. She, like you said, playing around with their food. It's like when we were kids and we didn't want
I
to
can
eat the
always
peas.
tell when with them playing around, I'm like, okay, I know what's happening.
Yeah. And I find it to be empowering to sit down, to look and feel great, right? Because that's the ultimate goal for my clients to talk about their progress and not in a comparison way, but like we always look at non-scale victories. So, I deadlifted this much, or whatever it is, be able to eat a real meal. I feel like that's the flex using the kids' words. That's the flex now. That's the what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's the thing that no one else is doing. Like you're able to do something that others are not able to do. And I find that so empowering. However, you had said something like food's losing its like pleasure. And again, for my clients, one of the first things that we have them do is write down their love foods. So absolutely love if it's at the party on the table, I'm going to have a piece of it. Great. Have that piece of it. But also I help them understand what foods are both pleasurable and nourishing. Because we all have a list of foods that provide us macronutrients and micronutrients that we love. For me, it's strawberries, blueberries, avocados, eggs, really apples, oranges, a lot of fruit. I love a lot of fruit. What else? Salmon. I love salmon. I love, and when we're making these lists for your listeners, it's foods that on their own, like with minimal preparation, you could eat on your own. And so we help them see the pleasure, not just in their pleasurable foods or love foods, but the pleasure in the nourishing foods too. So we're creating a new relationship with food. And I want my clients to have as much volume on that plate as possible because if they are in a deficit, we want you to feel full. We don't want you to feel like you're starving the
Yeah.
entire time. And then also the opposite, a lot of the women that come into my program are not eating enough, and we need to get their metabolism to work in the way that it's supposed to work for their particulars, their height, their weight, their age, their activity level. So we actually reverse diet them and bring their calories up, right? And it really is so magical for women to be like, I cannot believe I'm eating this much food and I'm seeing like really amazing changes in my body. So to answer your question, It is educating yourself. It's beginning to, again, recreate that relationship with food, looking at foods not as good or bad, looking at them as nourishing and pleasurable. And we need a balance of both. And then also, beginning to see like actually eating more and still seeing results. Like that's the ultimate goal.
That
I'd
is
rather do that than pay, whatever it is a month to be on Ozempic and, play, hockey with my food.
I completely understand, and I agree with you. If we can do it, and if we have someone like you to guide us and to create that better relationship with food, I feel like that's the key. We have so much more to talk about. I wanted to talk about caretaking, and now I'm like, we're running out of time. Okay, I'm gonna
Oh,
ask
I
you
have
one last
time.
question.
I don't have
Um,
anything till 4:30.
okay, awesome. So let's see, how can, because I know you said you were caretaking and that had to do
Mhm.
a lot with your journey, right? And I just want to touch on that because I notice obviously I mean, it's, obviously if you're younger and you have to do that, that's even more challenging. But now as we hit in our midlives, we have aging parents. And I
Yes.
see that around where a lot of females have so much guilt and they're self-sabotaging themselves because they feel like they need to spend every single minute taking care of their parents,
Hmm.
and but it's really draining them because they don't like, if a parent has Alzheimer's or they don't even recognize who they are, or dementia,
Hmm.
it's really, it's not even the physical that's draining, that's that emotional,
Hmm.
eh, pain that drains you, and there's nothing left for you at the end of the day. And I was just actually speaking to someone a few nights ago, and she was talking to me about her father who was not feeling well, and she's older too, and she wants to travel and do things, but she's
Hmm.
putting everything on hold. And, meanwhile, another person was talking about how she's just been diagnosed with cancer. So then you get
Hmm.
fearful. Then there's my own health. I need to take care of myself. What if I don't have the time that comes, to fill out any of the items on my bucket list? So, how do we go about trying to shape our life and be caretakers? Because unfortunately, this is the time in our life where this is going to happen, but we need to prioritize ourselves in order to be able to help all the people around us. That was
Yeah.
a really long question. I apologize.
No, I love it. So, full transparency, my dad has stage 4 lung cancer, and he,
Sorry.
yeah, it's inevitable. So, I've had to learn this for myself because I do feel a lot of guilt because I have a business that I'm running, I have my family, and you know, not I want to spend time with him, I want to help him. My mom, as you guys can tell, isn't very patient, and my dad's also blind, you guys. So it's very difficult for
So
him.
hard.
So I have to set boundaries and say these are the days that I can come because I'm looking at my schedule, and I always have my non-negotiables every single day. My non-negotiables are going to be different than everyone else's, but I wake up, I write in my journal, I read a little bit, I pray, and I walk my dog. Then I might work out, or I might do just like a rest day, or I like to do a lot of mobility and pelvic floor work, especially as I get older. So I might do that. It's very gentle. Then I can start my day from there. Like I'll eat breakfast and all of that too. That's a non-negotiable for me to at least spend that first part, the writing, reading, and walking. And I'm going to look at, can I get that done? Can I move my schedule so that I'm not feeling like I'm running back and forth? And he's been in the hospital several times, and I would take calls from the hospital. But what I mean by running back and forth is I feel like sometimes we put ourselves in positions out of guilt where we're like the next thing is like butting up against what we're doing now. We feel rushed. We feel like we can't, breathe. Like we're constantly going, going, going. And for me, I kind of created that bubble in my schedule. And I would tell my parents, like, these are the days that I can come. And I made sure for myself, like, I need to be present with him. It's not the quantity of time, it's the quality of time. And if
Okay.
I'm
Not like
rushed,
just checking it off, right? Yeah.
thank you. And I think that's what we think women
Mhm.
think is caretaking. But it's like you're there and you're just like doom scrolling on your phone because you're so maxed out. Why not be there? Like when I'm there, he does his exercises. I rub his feet with this like THC oil because he has like a lot of swelling. We talk, just, do whatever. We sing songs. We were dancing in the hospital at one point because he loves to dance,
That's
dancing
sweet.
from his bed. Yes. And so we have to remember that when we fill up ourselves and we prioritize ourselves, I actually have a great example. Have you ever used, I use this example often. Have you ever used a mascara that was old and you're like sitting there and you're like putting several coats
Yes,
on, right?
definitely.
I found myself doing that the other day and I'm looking in my drawer and I have this new mascara, but it was like one that I bought from the pharmacy when I was traveling because I forgot my mascara, brand new. And I'm like, I just spent 10 minutes using this old mascara when I could pick up this replenished mascara, put on a couple coats, and be on my way. And it literally was like, this is what women do. We want to use the old mascara, right? We want to drain ourselves, making everything harder, right? We were working harder, not smarter,
So
rather
true.
than replenishing ourselves, right? Plugging our battery into the wall and letting it charge. We do that with our phones. We don't let our phones get that low. Why do we let ourselves get that low? And again, all of that's going to help you be the best person, the best version of yourself for your parents and or in the situation with Alzheimer's and dementia. I've had a few friends lose their mothers from that. Have the emotional energy to handle that. The energy to set that emotional boundary that this is not about me. This is a disease. And having the internal boundary system. You need energy for everything that I'm talking about, and that comes from replenishing yourself.
We definitely have to, we all as females have to work on this because we are really, we can't and pour from the empty cup. And that's like one of the things that we know, but we just don't follow it.
Hmm.
And I feel like I can talk to you forever. I feel like we've known each
I
other
love
forever.
this.
I just
I
have to tell you
know.
your energy. It's like we've been friends forever and we're just
I
having a conversation. I mean, this is
yes.
incredible. But to wrap things up, in today's episode, we explored why uncovering the root cause of our struggles with food, body image, and self-worth is essential. True healing starts when we let go of the beliefs that keep us stuck so we can stop chasing perfection and build absolute confidence and balance. We also talked about how our emotions need to become priorities. When we create awareness around how you feel, you can start addressing the lack of boundaries, just like we're talking about now, self care, and emotional regulation that often drives emotional eating. From that place of awareness, clarity, and purpose, real healing becomes possible, and food no longer needs to be your emotional escape. Remember, food is not the enemy, it's the signal. Every craving and moment of emotional eating is an invitation to pause, check in, and ask yourself what you really need. When you meet your emotions with compassion instead of judgment, that's when true healing begins. Thank you, Christina, so much for being on Female Fluence and sharing your incredible wisdom with us today. Is there anything else you would like to add? I know you said there was a code for the
For
you're
the
talking for the
yes.
menopause, right?
So I will send the link to the symptom tracker. And yes, we will do if you I'll put the link below and we'll do a code mindset and that will allow for $250 off of the program for
That's
your
wonderful. I
listeners.
will I will send those to me and I will include those all in my show notes so that people can find
Perfect.
the code and find to get in contact with you.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together, we can influence and motivate other mind like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired.
All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at femalefluence on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you are in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.